This week, the Synod wraps up. A Vatican official gets a first-hand look at the plight of refugees. And we have the itinerary for the Pope's next trip. Hello and welcome to another edition of Vatican Connections. Now, the Synod of Bishops is wrapping up at the Vatican and we have everything you need to know. But first, the itinerary for the Pope's trip to Africa has been released. The Pope will leave Rome on November 25th for Kenya. He will spend only about 2 days in Nairobi and move on to Uganda, where he will spend a bit more than 1 day in Entebbe. From there, he will continue to the Central African Republic for the last 24 hours of his visit. Along the way, he will visit the United Nations Nairobi office, shrines for Catholic and Anglican martyrs, and a refugee camp. The Pope will return to Rome on November 30th. Refugees continue to arrive in Europe looking for a safe new home. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, the head of Caritas International, was in Greece this week to see firsthand the situation for refugees who survived the perilous sea journey. Catholic News Service has more.
They reached this camp after spending days, nights, ready on small boats, rafts, in order to reach some islands here in Greece, and then they're transported to Athens. And there in Athens, there's some sort of a promise that things will go well. But then they take the bus coming here, and they're processed here in a way, to get to the border. And then they walk for like 600 kilometers, and then to reach another camp, and they're not sure whether they will get on the train and how they will be treated on the border, the next border. Again, it's uncertainty upon uncertainty. I'm very, very glad that the bishops from the Middle East, the bishops from Africa, the bishops from Asia, and the bishops of Europe have been talking about forced migration, displacement of peoples, conflicts of different sorts, the arms race, wars, that are destroying families. These are not just external contexts or factors. These are factors or that hit at the heart of the family, and we see it here. The loneliness, the fear, the tiredness, the weariness. Then you see people really coming only with a bag, with a backpack, with the clothes on their bodies, and their families. And you could see that their only wealth, really, in the end, is really their families. And they will do anything, everything for their remaining wealth. And this is their future, their families.
And of course, what is a week at the Vatican without some sort of outrageous newspaper story? This time, an Italian daily reported that Pope Francis has been diagnosed with a small, curable brain tumor by noted brain cancer specialist Dr. Takanori Fukushima. Vatican spokesperson Father Federico Lombardi issued not one, but 3 statements saying Pope Francis has not been diagnosed with any brain tumor, he has not undergone any diagnostic tests as described by the Italian paper, and has never been visited by Dr. Fukushima. Father Lombardi said he asked the Pope directly and can confirm the pontiff is in perfectly good health. Father Lombardi said publishing such an unfounded story is irresponsible. Now, the newspaper, Il Quotidiano Nazionale, said they stand by their story. Now, the Synod of Bishops wrapped up this week, and the last phase of work was where the small groups had to present their propositions, and another committee had to take all of those propositions and synthesize them into one final document to present to the Holy Father. Now, it was no easy task to go through the working document piece by piece and discuss the topics laid out there, but it has been done. We learned this week that the final document is considered to be a reflection piece for Pope Francis. Cardinal Oswald Gracias of Bombay told journalists the text presents many questions, but not necessarily solutions. Now, our team in Rome spoke to some of the participants at the Synod about the issues they see and how their work has progressed.
I think it is a wonderful experience. We have really gotten down to the difficult areas now, the controversial aspects, I suppose, of the whole Synod, which is how do we reach out to those who are not living in accordance with the teaching of the Church in a way which will proclaim the truth and the gospel, but which will at the same time reach out pastorally and accompany them. So I'm finding it a very interesting and exhilarating discussion, and I'm very hopeful that it will feed into the final document of the Synod.
I'm here representing the Anglican Communion, but also especially representing the Archbishop of Canterbury, and so I brought his prayers and greetings. I asked that the Synod might be praying for him as well, because we have a very important meeting of the primates coming up in January. The other thing I went on to say really was that listening to many of the interventions, I felt that often it seemed as if that they were talking about a moment in time, that the family was almost a unit or an event that happened on a particular moment. So I was talking about the fact that families change all the time and that we all change all the time. And so I was going on to suggest that actually as Christians we ought to embrace change, because we are those who are converted to Christ every single day of our lives. And I think if we have that open aspect, then we can be more hopeful about the future and also in our engagement with the families as they're changing all the time. There are some good moments and some difficult moments. So I've had some moments where I've sat in admiration of all that's happening around me, and I've had some moments where I've sat wondering what's going on around me. So I think that this is exactly a process that everybody is learning about. And as in our small group we were saying this morning actually that some people are very nervous because they expect somebody to tell them what to do and to be very clear. Other people are delighted that there is a space. I think it will take much longer than these 3 weeks for this process to become a natural and normal part of the life of the ongoing life of the Roman Catholic Church.
It is, a process that is in course. We are in our little group, how do you say in good English? The Circuli Minores. At the first week, there was a lot of disease among us and opposition that had been fed from outside. So first week I had the impression that oppositions had been nourished before the Synod. So it takes not only a couple of days, but a couple of weeks before discussion gets more open and more frank. And that also it is a more fruitful discussion with more results that that we share together. Well, I think it should be useful not only on the theoretical level, but on the level of pastoral life. All of us, we are returning home. So the purpose is not to stay here weeks or months longer, but the purpose is for each and every bishop to return in his local church, in his country, in his continent. And it is there that the life of the church is what it has to be. So what I hope is that the bishop from Africa, he can return to Africa with the good news of the gospel. And I have to return to Belgium with the good news of the gospel. So that people, they may, let us say, feel that the church is with them in all these different particular circumstances. So what we need here is not general answers to general questions, because these answers often they are useless, but we need answers or a common commitment or a common commitment of the bishops all together, so that they can do in their local churches what is necessary there to preach the gospel, to bring people closer to Jesus Christ, and to relate them in a new way to the local community of the Christians.
I see in the world, in the churches of the world, no, there are so many different situations, but the common elements, one of the common elements maybe, very negative, it is the crisis of faith, no? So in Japan, we are a very small church, but even us, among us, it's a big problem, no? Many Christian Catholics don't go to Sunday Mass, and the parents don't know how to educate their children and so on, no? They are many Christian Catholics are influenced so strongly by the culture, modern culture and consumerism and so on, no? So I expect that Synod, Fathers of Synod or the Pope, make a big appeal of the promotion, for example, of the biblical sharing and anyway the renewal of faith or Christian life.
Yes, as you might know, Indonesia is a very large country, and the situation of the family is very different from place to place. Say, for example, Jakarta, my diocese, is a metropolitan, but on the eastern part, Papua, there are people who live in the jungle. So it is very difficult to tell you generally, without generalization, what the situation and challenges of the family life in Indonesia is. But for example, I'll tell you some of the situation in Jakarta. Like in the big cities everywhere, modern challenges are very actual there. Divorce and modern living, way of life, and secularization. Situations like this, like these, are very actual. So there are really many big challenges in the pastoral of family life.
I'm astonished that many people speak about doctrine. They have no idea what is doctrine. We have different levels: opinio, certa, de fide definita, de fide, revealed truth, doctrine of the church, and so on and so on. So that's the first point. The doctrine is the tradition of the church. The doctrine of the church is not a closed shop, but a living tradition. Between Casti Connubii, the encyclica of Pius XI, and Familiaris Consortio is a way. It's not the same. Between Vatican Council I and II is a way. It's not the same. I cannot understand that these normal things are not clear. It's clear. We don't change the truth, but we find the greater truth. The truth is owning us. We don't own the truth. The truth is a person we meet. That's the point. And I think, and the second point is pastoral and doctrine is not opposite. We make the doctrine, and then we look how to make the application. That was not the idea. So the pastoral and the doctrine is together. What will you do with the doctrine without living it?
But it's not just bishops and clergy taking part in the synod. Families themselves have been called to be a part of this. And here's what some of them had to say.
After 40 years of marital love, I just realized that we are not a perfect family and we live in an imperfect world. But looking back, we were able to raise our children through family prayer, through the Eucharist, and the Word of God. Okay? And so coming to the Synod, we don't have much expectation except we would like to bring the message, the ministry of presence. Our mere presence in the Synod is just enough for us, sharing our life story as a family, how we raise our children.
We said in our intervention that many times we don't need words, especially in times of grieving, but we are helped by the ministry of presence, by the presence of so many of our friends, our co-workers, our family, of course, but from the church. We also would like to see that many bishops and priests would visit their people, especially the poor, whose only consolation precisely is to see themselves as important enough to be visited by their priests, by their pastors, by the bishops. That's enough for us. No need for to give us concrete solutions. The Holy Spirit will guide us there.
We talked about our ministry, Worldwide Marriage Encounter, and that it's in 100 countries. But we talked about what that movement or that experience has done for our relationship. And I mentioned that I didn't want to go on the weekend. But on the weekend, I discovered our relationship and our relationship with God. And the other thing I was reawakened to is how much Kathy loved me. Because when I saw God's love for me through her eyes, it really made a big difference in terms of our relationship. It kind of re-energized our relationship.
And it re-energized our relationship with God as well and with the church. Because I was just amazed that God wanted for us what I wanted. I wanted, him to look at me with love, and I wanted to have a really close relationship and be connected to him in a really deep and intimate way. And that's what God wants for us. That's when we're at our best. And not only that, we discovered on that weekend that we are a sacrament. We don't just receive a sacrament of marriage, we are the sacrament of marriage. So it's our responsibility to live that out as a sign for the church and for others in the world. So it really gave us a whole new appreciation for marriage.
Let's take a look now at what Pope Francis has been doing this week. Over the weekend, he marked the 50th anniversary of the institution of the Synod of Bishops, along with the bishops and lay people participating in the current one. He said since the Second Vatican Council, the Church has experienced both the need and the beauty of walking together. He recalled the Vatican II statements on sensus fidei and said, when everyone, from the bishops down to the least of the faithful, show consensus on matters of faith and morals, it is an expression of this sensus fidei. Pope Francis also said this was what inspired him to open the pre-synod consultation to lay people around the world. He reminded his brother bishops that a synodal church is a church that listens, but also working to build that church has ecumenical implications. And he said he hopes the Synod will also shed new light on the Petrine ministry. Now on Sunday, St. Peter's Square was packed as tens of thousands of people took part in the Mass for the canonization of 4 new saints, including Louis Martin and Marie-Zélie Guérin, who are better known as the parents of St. Thérèse of Lisieux. CNS has more.
Coloro che oggi sono stati proclamati santi hanno costantemente servito con umiltà e carità straordinarie i fratelli, imitando così il Divino Maestro. San Vincenzo Grossi fu parroco zelante, sempre attento ai bisogni della sua gente, specialmente alle fragilità dei giovani. Santa Maria dell'Immacolata Concezione, attingendo dalle sorgenti della preghiera e della contemplazione, visse in prima persona con grande umiltà al servizio agli ultimi. con un'attenzione particolare ai figli dei poveri e agli ammalati. I santi coniugi Ludovico Martin e Maria Celia Guerin hanno vissuto il servizio cristiano nella famiglia, costruendo giorno per giorno un ambiente pieno di fede e di amore. E in questo clima sono germogliate le vocazioni delle figlie, tra cui Santa Teresa di Gesù Bambino. La testimonianza luminosa di questi nuovi santi ci sprona a perseverare sulla strada del servizio gioioso ai fratelli, confidando nell'aiuto di Dio e nella materna protezione di Maria. Dal cielo ora veglino su di noi e ci sostengano con la loro potente intercessione.
Now, after that Mass, Pope Francis dedicated himself to the final week of the Synod of Bishops, stopping only to hold the weekly general audience. Here's more from CNS.
Non dimenticare mai l'identità della famiglia, sempre è una promessa che si allarga e si allarga a tutta la famiglia e anche a tutta l'umanità. Ai nostri giorni l'onore della fedeltà alla promessa della vita familiare appare molto indebolito. Da una parte perché un malinteso diritto di cercare la propria soddisfazione a tutti i costi e in qualsiasi rapporto viene esaltato come un principio non negoziabile di libertà. D'altra parte perché si affidano esclusivamente alla costrizione della legge e i vincoli della vita di relazione e dell'impegno per il bene comune. Ma in realtà nessuno vuole essere amato solo per i propri beni o per obbligo. L'amore, come anche l'amicizia, devono la loro forza e la loro bellezza proprio a questo fatto, che generano un legame senza togliere la libertà. L'amore è libero. La promessa della famiglia è libera e questa è la bellezza. Senza libertà non può essere amicizia, senza libertà non c'è amore, senza libertà non c'è matrimonio.
And over the coming weekend, the Vatican is scheduled to host what they're calling the World Gypsy Pilgrimage. Now, what that refers to is a pilgrimage of Roma and Sinti people from around the world. The event marks the 50th anniversary of Pope Paul VI's visit to a Roma camp in Italy. Pope Francis will be holding a special audience with pilgrimage participants. Well, that's all for this edition of Vatican Connections. Join us again next time for a wrap-up on the Synod of Bishops and a look ahead to the papal trip to Africa. Now, until then, you can follow us on Twitter or check our blog, and of course, catch up on all our Synod coverage on Roku TV on demand. From everyone here, thanks for watching. See you next time.